Coming up on Business Live this evening, Economist proposes more support from the central bank to sustain the cedi's gains. Also, government to prioritize the growth of micro, small and medium businesses as part of post-COVID economic recovery plans. We'll hear from the Trade Ministry. Plus, National Lottery Authority to commence fresh prosecutions of unlicensed lotto operators. My name is Israelai, and you're welcome once again to Business Live. Now, in our first story, economist at Data Bank Jamate is pushing for more support from the central bank to help sustain the cedi's stability. The local currency has seen some record stability for the first 7 months of this year. The development has been attributed to some policy measures put in place by the central bank. Speaking with Joy Business earlier on the marketplace, Mr. Mate says the Bank of Ghana may have to up their support a little bit to sustain the good run.
A number of issues. We have mainly the fact that the central bank introduced into the market FX forward options onto the market since late last year. It's been absolutely wonderful, and I think we'll rate it top notch because the mode with which the central bank operates the forward auctions is very unique. Because when they auction the dollars, they do not supply the dollars today because they forward auction. However, they take off the cedi equivalent today, and that limits the amount of cedis available for you to use to disturb the currency on the market. So that operation helps the cedi maintain stability before the supply side even comes into play. And then again, we also have to recall that before the pandemic, we already struck a $3 billion Eurobond that came through. Then during the pandemic, we got $1 billion from the IMF, $350 million from the World Bank, and something from the African Development Bank. Now, what foreign investors have seen by this regard is that for the short term, our FX needs have already been catered for. And for that matter, they are not punishing the Ghana cedi. So that has helped the Ghana cedi to be this stable for this long. And we expect that this stability will be sustained to the end of the year, despite the risk of elections. Management, lies rightly in the hands of the central bank. So what they must be careful about is that despite the shortfall in government revenue and the need to step in to fund the government budget, we must keep an eye on the FX development so that it would not cause a destabilization of the stability we've already seen. And so whilst there's a need for central bank to step in, like it's been done around the world, to support government budget, we must also be cautious and proceed with caution because there could be an FX consequences of the excess liquidity. So you would want the central bank to support the government, but proceed with caution with an eye on the exchange rate because it comes back to haunt inflation if the exchange rate loses, stability.
The Ghana Revenue Authority, as part of its corporate social responsibility, has presented some medical items and locally manufactured solutions to the medical reception station for the 1st Infantry Battalion at Michel Camp. The initiative comes at a time the medical facility has been heavily involved in the fight against the coronavirus pandemic with very little resource. There is more in the following report.
The gesture forms part of the mobilization drive by the Ghana Revenue Authority to help fight the global pandemic in order to get economic activities back on track. Some of the items donated include alcohol-based hand sanitizers locally manufactured from the customs lab, paper wipes, and other medical items. After a short ceremony to present the items to the medical facility, Assistant Commissioner, the Commissioner General Secretariat, Joseph Odroyeboa, noted that the GRA is not only interested in the collection of taxes, but as well the well-being of the citizens in order to go about their businesses.
Part of our social responsibilities. Every year we select some of these medical facilities and we do donations. So it's one of our social responsibilities, activities that we perform. And then also, yes, I said we are not in normal time, and certainly as an institution we have a lot of institutions writing to us for support, and we really assess the needs of these institutions, and I think that this facility was one of the institutions we selected to support in this time of COVID.
Medical officer of the facility, Captain Kelvin Amedo, who received the items on behalf of the station, is confident that the product will go a long way to support the hospital in fighting the pandemic.
First Hospital Clinic, this health facility has been very much involved in COVID-19 management, and I want to say these hand sanitizers, the detergents, and all other items that have been brought to us today will be put to good use in ensuring the highest level of care to our patients. Thank you very much.
The medical reception station serves some parts of Tema and the military camp.
Government says it will invest more funds into businesses of micro, small and medium enterprises in the coming months. The move is part of its post-pandemic economic recovery plan aimed at strengthening the economy. Deputy Minister for Trade and Industry Robert Ahumka-Lindsay disclosed to journalists the various funds announced by government to revive the said businesses is the start of the various initiatives to be executed. There's more in this report.
Government will be providing more support through the National Board for Small-Scale Industries to revive operations of small-scale businesses in the country. The move will form part of several initiatives by the government, including the Coronavirus Business Support and the MasterCard Business Recovery and Resilient Program to get the economy back on track. According to Deputy Minister for Trade and Industry Robert Ahumka-Lindsay, the micro small-scale industries have become the engine of growth, hence the aggressive agenda by government to revive the economy through that sector.
The reality is that we know the 700 odd million that the government of Ghana has committed, plus this 90 million that has come through from the partnership, is a start. This government knows the importance of MSMEs. They are our economy. And you know, at any time we have different programs that has come forward. So you will see with time as we go on that more will come through. Because this is about recovery and resilience. The next part is growth, because that's a very important aspect. There's an aspect that says, I'm going through a tough time because of COVID, so I need help. Just let me hold still. But that's not enough. We need to grow. That is where you see, for instance, the changes we envisage for MBSSI in its structure, the 100 billion fund that the Minister of Finance has talked about, and MBSSI will play a very important role as we're going forward.
On her part, Executive Director of the National Board for Small-Scale Industries, Kosian Kiaye, urged small businesses affected by the pandemic to take advantage of the initiatives by the government. She has also been explaining some key sectors that the board will be investing more in.
With lessons learned from the CAT Business Support Scheme, we hope to improve and expand and ensure that the micro, small and medium enterprises in Ghana have hope and continuously have support to accelerate the growth of their businesses. Once again, the application will be on a portal, and the portal will be made available online under nbssi.gov.gh/recovery program. This is a time for Ghanaian businesses to recover, stand strong and accelerate to really benefit from all the interventions of government and in the community.
So far, some funds have been released to the National Board for Small-Scale Industries and participating banks for disbursement to businesses affected by the pandemic.
Now imagine losing your job and having no idea where next your daily bread or income will come from. It gets even more depressing when your employer happens to be one of the defunct fund management firms collapsed in the financial sector cleanup. This is a story of about 300 former workers of the collapsed fund management firms appealing to the government to pay their salary arrears and severance packages immediately to alleviate their long suffering. Charles Ayite interacted with some of these former employees earlier on the marketplace.
The ex-staff of the defunct fund management companies, we are really suffering. We've been suffering and we are still suffering. We are still suffering because in the process of the cleanup, we lost our jobs really. So in December and in November 2019, our regulator, Securities and Exchange Commission, revoked the license of about 53 companies.
Exactly.
So we lost our job. So since then, we are at home. Many of us are at home, and our situation is bad.
So what do? You're home doing what?
Nothing.
How do you cater for your family?
Well, we've been dependent on family and friends for the past 2 years, and we've just got to the end of the road. We can't continue anymore. We are suffering.
Let me bring in Patrick. Patrick, which particular collapsed firm were you previously working with?
Okay, I was with Macaulay Capital.
Okay.
Yes, and similar to his, our license was also revoked in November. We are here first and foremost, not for ourselves, but also for the rest of our colleagues. Some have been able to find things to do. Some of us, fortunately, have some little things that we are doing with the support of family and friends, but it doesn't apply to the entire group. So we here, just as my brother said, to appeal to the government. We've had some discussions with them. I think we met SEC some time ago, but we are appealing to them that once that they've started attending to the customers, they should also attend to us. And one thing we'd also want to add is that BOG has already gone through this process. And so we believe SEC can take a cue from them and speed up our process without having to delay us so much.
Well, Theophilus, have you exhausted all the needed channels? We do know the Registrar General is currently, the official liquidator. Have you exhausted discussions with them so far?
Yeah, we are in talks with them, and what we want is that we want the process to be quickened, to be sped up, because we've been at home we've been suffering for the past 2 years. And let me quickly say that we also have feelings, or we appreciate the government's effort in trying to pay our customers. We have a relationship with them, and we still talk to them. In fact, even today, this morning, I've taken about 4 calls from our customers. So we appreciate the fact that the government is trying to put in an effort to start paying them. But what we are saying is that we also, as staff, before the revocation, after the revocation, we've been suffering. So please, government, this is a special appeal, really. A special appeal to the President of the Republic of Ghana, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo. He being the president of the country, a compassionate for that matter, and a listening president, for him to come to our aid, make some funds available to pay us, the ex-staff, especially our severance package and salary arrears. Severance package because a lot of us are still at home, as my colleague said, but we want to start something. We want to start something our own, move on with our lives. But what do we need? We need money. So that's why we are pleading with the government to get some funds available, make some funds available so that we can get our severance package paid, start something on our own, and move on with our lives.
Your final words, gentlemen.
Okay. We believe that the government is doing very well. We initially didn't take this direction because we believe customers too are key. They keep calling us and we felt they should be attended to. But just as I said, now BOG has successfully gone through the exercise. We've heard that they've even decided to pay all the customers who were on bonds cash payments.
Exactly.
Which some of them have confirmed. So we believe SEC can take a cue from what BOG is doing without having to reinvent the wheel and look at the structures they use to be able to settle us as quickly as possible.
But your case is a sympathetic appeal.
Yes, for now.
Which means that it could be adhered to, it could be listened to, it could not be listened to. Looking at the alternative, the negative side, what happens if, your case is not heard?
Now, for now, the President of the Republic has shown and demonstrated through this COVID time that, and by the way, the COVID made our situation even worse. Do you imagine?
I can imagine.
Exactly. So the President has shown that he's a compassionate president, he's a listening president, and JoyNews, Joy Business gets results. So we know that the President is listening, and he will definitely give in come in to help us. So that's exactly what.
The National Lottery Authority says it will commence another round of prosecution of unauthorized lotto operators in the country. According to the authority, this has become necessary as its attention has been drawn to new cases of fraudulent lottery activities. In an interview, Director General of the NLA, Kofi Osei-Amea, cautioned the public against these miscreants.
As you may be aware, in Ghana, the National Lottery Authority is the only authority that is mandated by law to conduct or operate lotto. So anyone who operates lotto without the NLA giving them a license is prohibited. And obviously, there are some people who are operating without license. So those are the ones I was talking about. And if you stake on a piece of paper and you win and they are unable to pay and you come to NLA, we shall not be able to assist you. But if you we are calling on them to come in and get their license so that when they stake, we can all come together and pay. We have had a meeting with the private lotto operators and have come to an agreement that they all have to come to us and get a license, and we'll give them the machines to be able to operate business as usual. We need to be able to regulate, monitor their activities so that we know those who are operating, so that when somebody stakes at a particular vendor's kiosk and they win, we can pay their wins. We cannot let the public go and stake lotto and it's written on a piece of paper, and then tomorrow when we draw the numbers and they win, you go to the place and the person is disappeared. This simply because we don't have any records or data on them. It is upon that basis that we are calling all those who are in the business to come, and then the new ones who want to join, come. We will give you the necessary machines or equipment to be able to do your work.
A team of technicians from Africa World Airlines has visited the whole airport to assess the possibility of commencing flight operations to the region. The Chief Safety Officer of the airline, Captain Kwesi Oting, said it was regrettable that government didn't inform them of the handing over of the airport and its readiness for commercial flight. According to him, the company was satisfied with the level of infrastructure and that a team will be constituted to explore the options available at the airport. Here's an infographic we put together for you. Telecom operators have moved to establish a centralized database which will enable them blacklist numbers used by mobile money fraudsters in this country. This, according to them, is part of several measures being instituted to deal with the malpractice. Chief Executive of MTN Ghana, Selo Madadivo, spoke with Joy Business.
So absolutely, look, it's important that in terms of business recovery, you just don't have the processes, but you also think about the behaviors that make the processes work. And to really test the human behaviors that, and the knowledge around these processes, a simulation is a recommended approach to do this, where you basically create a situation where you have to figure out who's going to respond first, who's going to call first, which number am I going to call from, how do I know I'm calling the right person, things like that, because we all have alternative numbers for situations that arise like that. This simulation itself is part of our risk management process. We have a simulation, we have a business risk management approach, and this was part of that process. So, I would love to say we anticipated COVID and we had all the answers and we did the simulation, but it wasn't about COVID. It was about our regular business and risk management practices, making sure that if an event does happen, we have a degree of readiness to allow us to continue to sustain the business and continue to deliver the services that we should. So that simulation, allowed us to go through what we do in a disaster situation, what we do in a crisis, and how we should coordinate as a team, really focusing on the behaviors. How do I interpret my role in managing all of this? If the customer picks up their phone and they don't have the service, it doesn't matter that there is a pandemic. Because at that point, the service availability arguably is even more important. Because now you can't just walk to someone and solve your problem. And your singular means of reaching someone is through these communication channels. So the premium on availability, arguably is much higher during the pandemic. And we had to make sure the availability was high enough for that. In terms of mobile money, there were obviously big challenges because part of the mobile money delivery has to do with interacting with an agent to fund your wallet. So of course, during lockdown, that was quite challenging, where agents couldn't necessarily go out and open their shops and work ordinarily, and we had to rely very heavily on other digital transactions for people who have bank accounts or other means of receiving cash to use those channels to fund their wallets. And some of the agents within their communities as well could support people. But that was one of the big challenges, and we saw a significant drop in the amount of funds that people were able to put into their wallet.
Well, the telecom giant says it has a very healthy relationship with government and its regulators despite the recent tangle on the dominant market player position.
Look, I think in general we have a good relationship with our regulators. Of course, when you work in an environment where your ambitions may not always be aligned across all the stakeholders, you do have points of difference and you do have points of disagreement. But it's part of running a business, and I don't think there are any environments where everything would always be perfectly aligned. But there's a way to deal with it, and so far I would say our relationship has been good. Yes, we do have some points of difference and disagreement, and we currently have the issue of SMP, which we have a disagreement on. But I don't think that should take away the fact that the relationship in itself, outside of the issue, is in a good place, and we have to recognize that we can't define the relationship by the specific issues we disagree on. I think that's an important thing for us all to note.
You don't think that maybe you're being arrogant to some of these players, and that is why a local authority will always want to come hard at you when you're putting up a mast and all the rest?
And, I have zero reason to believe that we exude arrogance when we have these engagements. And secondly, none of my regulators has come to me to say that MTN is being arrogant. So again, I want to believe that what we hear is the truth and is the reality. And when I look at how we engage, again, I have zero reason to believe that we're arrogant. But in the example you gave around sort of the mast and things like that, there are also things that are industry specific, right? And I've seen a lot of these issues that are much broader than MTN. So I'll be surprised if it's an issue of arrogance.
The National Labour Commission is lamenting that inadequate funds makes it difficult for the Commission to carry out its administrative work. Executive Secretary of the Commission, Ofosu Asamoah, tells Joy Business, though the Finance Ministry meets the budget requirement of the Commission, the cap placed on its demand means they've had to operate with the limited resources.
About close to 5 million.
Close to 5 million,
I'm sure.
Ghana cedis.
We had about 3 million or so for goods and services. And we have the capex, that's $1 million. And, as for the salaries and disenrollments around here, they are there.
So you don't have issues with funds when it comes with funding?
For the time being, no, I can't complain. Because we are giving budget ceilings. As I talk to you now, we did our technical hearing. I made my presentation last week. You see, on the budget. We have been giving a ceiling that yes, this year this is your ceiling. You will be giving 130, let's say 1.3 million for CAPEX. That is for your investment, purchase of machinery to work. We are giving you, let's say, 1 million for goods and services, right? That is going to have meetings and other administrative expenses. So that is for us to budget within. We are giving the ceilings. So if you don't go program yourself within the ceilings, like in the local parlance, they say cut your coat according to your size, then you might be in trouble. But we have been able to manage. In several years, they used to be with our lights. There was no money to buy lights, sometimes 1 week, 2 weeks. But for the past 3 years, I must say, we've never had that. Our lights have not gone off for 1 day.
Great. Now, does the money come early?
Oh, yes, I mean on time.
It comes on time?
On time, yes.
Great. So when it comes to funds, we have no issues with funds. Now,
you see, but like I said, that we need to employ more people. But because of the ceiling, we are getting financial clearance to employ is a bit difficult. As I talk to you now, we need a budget officer to assist us in our budgeting. We have to get, because we have regional offices, we should have a regional cost center so that we can budget for the reason they have their own thing. But because we don't have clearance to engage accounting personnel in the regions, all of them will have to rely on the head office. So they have to go and buy a brush and then send invoice here, then we pay, and so sometimes it makes a bit of delay in the administrative processes and effective functioning.
The Center for Coastal Management of the University of Cape Coast has bemoaned the near collapse of the fisheries industry. According to Director of the Center, Professor Dennis Wolanyo Aheto, excess capacity across the industrial and artisanal fishing fleets, which has led to overfishing, is killing the industry. Here's our quick take for today.
Because Ghana as a country should not be importing fish. We should look at targeting the export market where we can then export to the benefit of the country, because it's about Ghana's socio-economic development. And there are other associated issues. If we lose our fish stocks, you know, what then happens? I mean, we have about 3 million Ghanaians, about 10% of Ghana's population that is dependent on fish. And what that means is that we're going to have about 3 million people along the value chain who would not have access to livelihoods. And by implication, it means that we are letting out about 3 million people out of, putting them out of jobs. And this is a national security issue.
All right, then that'll be all for Business Live for today. I'm Israel. Thank you very much for watching. Have a good evening and make a date, same time next week.